You were taught to love the sound of your own chains. They called them duty, patience, sacrifice. They wrapped the metal in velvet words so you wouldn't notice the cold on your skin. You were told that if you just worked harder, if you just waited longer, if you just stayed grateful for crumbs, one day the door would open and your effort would be rewarded. But doors that open for the loyal are rarely doors to freedom. They are entrances to deeper rooms in the same prison. The world does not pay for pain, it pays for power. It does not honor sweat, it honors structure. You are not poor because you lacked effort. You were made poor by a game that turned effort into worship and worship into obedience. You have felt this on quiet mornings when the city still sleeps and the air is heavy with the silence of your unmade decisions. You have felt it in that tightness behind your ribs when you're asked to be patient by people who never had to wait. You have felt it when someone less qualified moved past you with a smile and a story, when someone less honest collected the reward you were promised, when you discovered that honesty without leverage is a confession, not a virtue. You have lost energy explaining your intentions to those who profit from your confusion. You have surrendered days to meetings that needed your presence but not your mind, nights to worry that didn't improve tomorrow, and years to the hope that the system would notice you if you just bled cleanly enough in public. Exhaustion is not a path to wealth. Exhaustion is how the system measures its control. Machiavelli saw the same play in candlelight that you see under LED screens. He watched princes curate appearances, harvesting loyalty from a distance, distributing mercy like theater, calibrating fear like music. He understood that power flows not from goodness, but from perception, not from virtue, but from positioning, not from fairness, but from the choreography of human hope. He wrote the manual for those willing to see without flinching. Men judge more by their eyes than by their hands. Appearances move the crowd, and the crowd moves the world. You do not need to become cruel to understand this. You need to become lucid. You need to stop seeking salvation in rules designed to keep you reliable. You were raised on fairness like it was food. It made you feel full. It made you sleep. It gave your fatigue a story. But fairness is the softest cage ever built, because it asks you to wait politely while others move decisively. The powerful speak fairness publicly and practice leverage privately. They praise transparency and rule through mystery. They sell hope in daylight and draft contracts in the dark. The poor perform goodness. The rich perform inevitability. The poor chase recognition. The rich sell recognition to those who need it. The poor compete to be seen. The rich design the window. Wealth begins with the first refusal. The refusal to explain yourself to doubters. The refusal to let guilt choose your pace. The refusal to be predictable when predictability is the cheapest commodity on earth. You must learn to value silence more than sympathy. Sympathy makes you soft. Silence makes you unreadable. When people cannot read you, they have to respect you. They fill the gaps with assumptions that overestimate your strength. That overestimation is leverage. That leverage is money in a psychological economy. Stop asking what is fair. Ask what is effective. Stop asking who deserves. Ask who designs. You were taught to equate busyness with progress, but busyness is a form of camouflage for the powerless. Power moves slowly and lands precisely. Power lets others sprint in circles while it studies the rhythm of their breath. Power spends an hour to save a year. Power does not argue, it arranges. Power does not react, it resets the board. Look at how they lead you. Notice how outrage comes in waves, timed like tides. Notice how every scandal arrives with a story pre-installed. How every failure is rerouted to a sale. How every apology sounds like brand positioning. How every conversation ends in your attention redirected toward products you didn't know you needed. Attention is harvestable. Outrage is harvestable. Envy is harvestable. Pity is harvestable. Those who are rich do not sell the best product. They sell the strongest emotion, delivered at the right temperature and time. You think the algorithm is cold mathematics? It is warmer than that. It is a mirror that feeds you your own hunger until you belong to it. The man who cannot master his attention will always be hired by the man who can. The man who must answer every insult will always be controlled by the one who keeps his mouth closed. The man who needs to be understood will always be poorer than the man who needs to be effective. You can hear the difference in their breathing. One pants, one waits, one demands to be heard, one chooses when to be seen. You've been told to put yourself out there, as if visibility itself were currency, but visibility without leverage is exposure, not wealth. You don't need to be everywhere. You need to be a place they cannot move without passing through. Become a bottleneck for value. Own the step in the process no one else wants to learn but everyone needs. Be the person whose presence changes the temperature in the room. Money follows temperature. Rooms heat up around scarcity and cool down around abundance. Become the climate control, not the weather complaint. There is a discipline, the powerful practice that the moral do not recognize. Strategic ambiguity, not lying, curating, not hiding, sequencing, not faking, framing. You do not announce every plan because the announcement is a gift to your opposition. You do not show every draft because drafts invite cheap opinions that cost you expensive time. You do not argue facts with people whose real anchor is identity. You conserve oxygen for action and let other people suffocate on their need to be right. You practice the ancient art of letting fools finish themselves. Machiavelli would tell you to be both fox and lion, not because the world is a jungle, but because the world is theater and you must play more than one role. The fox reads patterns, the lion sets boundaries. The fox turns enemies into unpaid scouts. The lion teaches consequence without tantrum. The fox collects small advantages so the lion never has to roar. The lion tolerates noise so the fox can work in silence. Together they do what effort alone never could. They turn other people's energy into your momentum. You are not late. You are early to your own clarity. The moment you stop seeking recognition, you begin to notice how people behave when they do not feel watched. Study this. People reveal their map when they think no one is tracing it. Watch how they react to boundaries. The nervous will push harder. The entitled will get offended. The mature will recalibrate. The powerful will respect you more. Boundaries are not walls. They are mirrors that show people their relationship to reality. Wealth begins where your boundaries become undeniable. You want proof that you can move without hard work or luck? Notice what happens when you stop reacting. The moment you delay your answer by 30 seconds, the conversation reorganizes. Someone else fills the silence with a confession. Someone else reveals a fear. Someone else compromises. Silence is not absence. Silence is gravitational pull. In a world of noise, silence is perceived as superiority. You can use that, quickly, quietly, daily, until people begin to treat you as the reference point they measure themselves against. Money follows reference points. Markets pay a premium to the standard bearer. You have mistaken guilt for ethics. Guilt is not proof that you did something wrong. Guilt is proof that your training is working. Your training told you to apologize for speed, for clarity, for boundaries, for preferring strategy over sentiment. The system needs your guilt because your guilt keeps you slow. A guilty person asks permission. A guilty person explains. A guilty person doubts. Nothing profitable has ever been built by a mind that apologizes for existing. Strategy. Lower your emotional temperature by half. When you feel anger, cut its volume and listen to the data it carries. When you feel envy, isolate the signal of desire inside it and remove the poison of comparison. When you feel fear, separate risk from story. Precision is profit. The more precise your internal language becomes, the more expensive your external time will be. People will pay for your clarity because clarity is scarce. They will follow your decisions because decisions are heavy, and most people have weak wrists. Understand leverage in its purest forms: information, positioning, and timing. Information tells you what others miss. Positioning makes you the place value must pass through. Timing makes your moves look like prophecy. You can build all three from nothing. Information comes from observation. Few people are patient enough to perform. Positioning comes from choosing a narrow domain and refusing to leave until you become a landmark. Timing comes from resisting the thrill of movement until movement matters. None of this requires luck. All of it requires lucidity. You were taught to aim at goals. Learn to build systems. Goals depend on weather. Systems create weather. Goals depend on mood. Systems ignore it. Goals seduce you with the fantasy of arrival. Systems seduce reality until it behaves like a rival. Build daily loops that grow without the quality of your day. Build a publishing loop that doesn't depend on inspiration. Build an inbound loop that doesn't depend on outreach. Build a learning loop that doesn't depend on courses, just curiosity and cataloging. The person with loops outlasts the person with willpower. You were told to be transparent to earn trust. The opposite is true. Be consistent to earn trust. Transparency asks for credit in advance. Consistency prints credit on delivery. Transparency is often a confession masquerading as virtue. Consistency is a calendar that other people can lean on. Consistency is predictability in action and unpredictability in strategy. Your habits become a lighthouse. Your plans remain a fog. You deliver what you promised. You never reveal how you'll scale it. That is how you build followers who don't need your explanations and enemies who can't replicate your movement. All empires are built on two illusions: inevitability and scarcity. Inevitability is the belief that you are already winning. Scarcity is the belief that access to you is limited. You create inevitability with calm repetition, confident language, steady cadence, absence of panic. You create scarcity with boundaries, limited windows, clear criteria, refusal to chase. Together they form a magnetic field. People pay more, wait longer, and behave better inside a magnetic field. The poor live at the mercy of momentum. The rich create it. Momentum is a byproduct of compound attention, repeated sightings of controlled competence. That is why your best investment is always a public asset that accrues trust while you sleep. A library of precise ideas, a system that serves others without your hands, a standard others repeat so often that your name becomes the shorthand for a solution. When people use your name as an adjective, we need the X-level version of this. You have crossed into the only market category that matters: memory. Memory is the last fortress of wealth. Markets crash, currencies inflate, platforms die. Memory persists. History remembers not who was nice but who was necessary, not who was relatable, but who was inescapable, not who asked permission, but who set direction. Design your work so it installs itself into the routines of others. If your value becomes a habit they practice, you will never have to beg for relevance again. There will be tests. The system will try to reclaim you through praise. We love how humble you are. And through insult, you've changed. Praise is a leash made of velvet. Insult is a leash made of wire. Both are leashes. Smile at praise without swallowing it. Nod at insult without wearing it. Keep your eyes on the rhythm you discovered in the dark. Slow, exact, unbothered. Patience isn't waiting. It's pressure applied in silence. You fear being called ruthless. But ruthlessness is not cruelty in this context. It is consistency with your standards when your feelings beg for exceptions. It is saying no because your future depends on it. It is saying not now because timing is leverage. It is saying nothing because mystery is revenue. You don't owe your tenderness to chaos. You owe your steadiness to the people who will rely on the systems you are building. You want practical moves. Here they are, sharp and usable. First, choose one domain narrow enough that mastery is visible within 90 days. Visibility of mastery is different from visibility of effort. People must see a standard change because you exist. Second, design an offer that converts attention into commitment with a single step. No friction, no maze, no convincing. Friction is a tax on trust. Remove it. Third, introduce a boundary that upgrades behavior. Limited windows, minimum price, minimum quality. Exclusivity without excellence is snobbery. Excellence without exclusivity is martyrdom. Fourth, publish a repeating signal of inevitability. Weekly cadence, ruthless focus, no drama. People need a drum to march to. Beat it with calm hands. Fifth, install an asymmetric acquisition loop. an asset that attracts qualified demand while you sleep, long-form clarity, a diagnostic tool, a comparison framework that flatters those who choose you. Leverage is a ladder. Build yours with rungs others can't climb. You still think luck is the god of winners. Luck is wind, real, sometimes violent, sometimes absent. Strategy is sail, skill is keel, character is hull. A bad boat drowns in a good wind. A good boat moves in almost none. Your job is not to pray for weather. Your job is to engineer a vessel that moves when others drift and holds when others split. You will be called fortunate because people only see you in storms when you are already upright. Stop measuring yourself by hours. Measure yourself by moments of irreversibility. One conversation that raises your average room. One asset that changes your inbound forever. One boundary that upgrades your time permanently. One decision that makes the old you impossible to return to. Wealth accumulates in spikes, not lines, and spikes are created by lucidity under pressure. You worry about being misunderstood. Let them misunderstand. Misunderstanding is camouflage when you're moving and fertilizer when you've arrived. The people who require your explanations are rarely the people who will build with you. Give your language to the aligned, your example to the receptive, your silence to the rest. A king does not argue his crown, he occupies it. You were not designed to be agreeable. You were trained to be. You were not meant to be constantly accessible. You were conditioned to be. You were not born to drown in other people's alarms. You were taught to treat noise like duty. Your biology can learn a new clock. Your ambition can learn a new grammar. Your boundaries can learn a new tone. Low, steady, unarguable. What you call destiny is often just a schedule you didn't design. What you call fate is often just a hierarchy you didn't question. What you call luck is often just someone else's preparation made visible. Prepare in the dark, calibrate your tone, install systems that run under the noise, become the calm eye inside the storm that other people create. Wealth is a weather pattern that forms around certainty. And now the unshakable truth, delivered without apology. You will never be paid what you are worth. You will only be paid what you organize. You will never be rewarded for what you feel. You will be rewarded for what you make others feel. You will never be compensated for your honesty. You will be compensated for the structure your honesty builds. Control perception, and you control behavior. Control behavior, and you control outcomes. Control outcomes long enough, and people will rename your leverage talent and your discipline luck. Let them. You will be too busy steering the tide they think is magic. In the end, the Machiavellian path is not cruelty. It is clarity. It is the refusal to let sentiment govern strategy. It is the discipline of becoming unreadable so you can become undeniable. It is the transformation from worker to architect, from participant to designer, from effort to leverage. You will know you are on the path when your silence starts opening doors that your speeches never could. You will know you are on the path when people begin to say, of course, about outcomes that used to look impossible. You will know you are on the path when you feel less rage, less panic, less hunger for recognition, and more calm, more time, more gravity. You wanted permission. Here it is. Stop asking for it. You wanted proof. Here it is. Notice how the room changes when you do not rush to fill it. Notice how your calendar changes when you eliminate the obligations that never changed you. Notice how your balance changes when your boundaries stop leaking. Notice how your name changes when your work becomes a standard. Nothing mystical, nothing accidental, nothing that requires you to be lucky or born with a crown. Just lucidity, leveraged. And if a voice still whispers that this is too dark, too cold, too sharp, let it speak. Then answer it with the question that ends arguments and begins authority. Has your softness made you free? If the answer is no, then this is not darkness, it is dawn. The light is colder before it warms. The truth is harder before it liberates. The path is quieter before it roars. In the next breath, we will cut deeper into the architecture of inevitability, into how to convert aura into agreements, silence into systems, distance into demand, We will turn psychology into income and detachment into compounding influence. You will not need luck. You will not need permission. You will need only what you have already begun to feel rising in you now. A calm that others obey without knowing why. You've already felt it. That strange, quiet power that appears when you stop rushing, stop explaining, stop proving. At first, it feels like withdrawal, then, like awakening. That silence you feared is not emptiness. It's leverage gathering its breath. Machiavelli understood that the most dangerous man in any room is the one who doesn't need to speak to control its temperature. The one who can look at chaos and see geometry. The one who can lose an opportunity and still feel wealth pulsing underneath. Because wealth is not in possessions, it is in perspective. He called it virtu, not virtue in the moral sense, but a living force, the ability to bend fortune without pleading to it. Fortune, he wrote, is like a woman. She yields to the bold, not to the hesitant. Yet boldness, in his view, was not noise or haste. It was timing disguised as inevitability. He meant that those who appear lucky have mastered the rhythm of opportunity. They strike not when it is loudest, but when it is most silent. You've seen this rhythm in others. The colleague who always seems to arrive just as the market shifts. The leader whose decision looks reckless until it succeeds. The competitor who stays invisible until everyone else is exhausted. They do not play harder. They play colder. They understand that the world rewards calm precision disguised as luck. They understand that emotion, when used deliberately, is a steering wheel. When indulged, it is a leash. You have spent years being steered. Every outrage, every urgency, every crisis has been a hand tugging your emotions into predictable patterns. The media learned to turn your adrenaline into engagement. Corporations learned to turn your boredom into consumption. Machiavelli would have laughed, not cruelly but knowingly, at this spectacle of modern obedience. He would have recognized it instantly as the evolution of control, not by sword, but by story. So how do you step out of the story? You begin by studying the choreography of attention. Watch where emotion gathers, because that is where power feeds. Observe which words make crowds lean forward. Fairness, equality, transparency, hope. And notice how those same words are used to sell submission. The powerful do not worship these words. They deploy them. They give the masses ideals to chase so they never chase the designers. When you stop reacting to narratives, you start to see patterns. Patterns are the veins of power. Every institution, government, corporation, religion, survives by harvesting predictability. They need your reactions timed, your outrage scheduled, your loyalty renewed on demand. The moment you disrupt your rhythm, you become economically invisible to them. That's why silence is feared. Silence breaks algorithms. Silence is what cannot be monetized. Your calm is rebellion. Your detachment is subversion. Your ability to withhold attention is the modern equivalent of refusing tribute to a king. And once you master it, you begin to see money for what it truly is, a signal of collective belief, a current of psychological gravity. You don't chase it, you redirect it. Imagine the psychology of a truly rich man. He wakes without hurry, because his time already compounds in structures he built yesterday. He speaks rarely because every word he says moves a network of consequences. He invests not in what is fashionable, but in what is inevitable. His calm is not arrogance, it is architecture. His stillness is not laziness, it is leverage disguised as peace. That is where you are heading. But to reach it, you must kill a ghost, the ghost of approval. Approval is the counterfeit of wealth. It buys applause, not autonomy. It feeds your ego while starving your strategy. The need to be liked will bankrupt you faster than any failed business, because it forces you to trade clarity for comfort, and comfort is the currency of the powerless. So stop chasing sympathy from those who haven't built anything. Stop explaining yourself to those who profit from your confusion. The rich understand that attention is credit. You spend it, or you compound it. Most people spend it proving what they could have been. A few compound it by saying almost nothing. That's the game. Now, let's move deeper. into the architecture of inevitability. Every empire, from Caesar's Rome to Silicon Valley, rests on the same invisible structure, the illusion of permanence. People obey, not because they understand. They obey because they believe collapse is impossible. The illusion of permanence is engineered through repetition, symbols, and silence. Repetition creates familiarity. Symbols create faith. Silence creates fear. Together, they make stability feel sacred. Machiavelli advised rulers to be both loved and feared, but if they could not be both, they must choose fear, not the fear of punishment, but the fear of uncertainty. The powerful manipulate this fear by making their collapse unthinkable. The lesson for you is simple. Become the kind of presence whose absence would feel like chaos. Build systems, relationships, and reputations so woven into others' routines that removing you would break their rhythm. That is what wealth feels like at scale, being indispensable without being dependent. Indispensability is a form of immortality. It is the quiet knowledge that while others age into irrelevance, your ideas, systems, and influence remain the foundation others must stand on. You cannot buy this kind of wealth. You can only design it. And the blueprint begins with one ruthless decision: to stop seeking fairness and start designing asymmetry. Asymmetry means the game works better for you than for them. It's not cruelty, it's clarity. Every advantage in nature is asymmetric. The predator sees faster, the tree grows higher, the river flows downhill. Fairness is a human invention meant to keep the majority calm. The rich understand this and spend their lives quietly stacking asymmetry. In information, in timing, in access. You can begin today. Learn what others ignore. Delay what others rush. Decline what others chase. Look at any fortune, and you'll see a pattern of asymmetry disguised as genius. The trader who knew when to wait. The founder who built one thing nobody could copy. The artist who mastered one emotion the culture craved. Genius is often just patience applied to asymmetry. Patience, that quiet word everyone praises but no one practices. Patience is not waiting passively. It is waiting with preparation. It is silence loaded with intent. It is knowing that noise ages badly but clarity ages well. Every crisis looks smaller after silence. Every opportunity looks larger. The rich use patience as others use caffeine. They slow down until time itself becomes their ally. You may wonder, isn't this manipulative? Doesn't this path risk turning you into what you despise? No. It rescues you from the illusion that purity and poverty must coexist. Morality without power is decoration. Compassion without clarity becomes a trap. Machiavelli's brilliance was not in teaching cruelty. It was in revealing that ethics without leverage is performance art. The goal is not to exploit, it is to see how predictable emotion can be, to see how systems feed on guilt and confusion, to see how easily most people give up agency because comfort feels like safety. Seeing is the beginning of control. Control is the beginning of freedom. Freedom, in its true form, is not leisure, it's lucidity. It's the ability to look at a contract, a conversation, a crisis, and see the invisible lines of power running through it. It's the ability to say no without needing a reason. It's the calm of someone who knows they can rebuild from nothing because they finally understand how wealth breathes. You will start to notice small shifts. People mirror your calm, defer to your silence, compete to fill your time. Opportunities will appear not because you chase them, but because you no longer vibrate at the frequency of desperation. Your detachment will feel magnetic. This is not mysticism, it's microeconomics of perception. Supply low, demand high. Mystery multiplies value. But here's the paradox. As you rise, your biggest threat will not be failure. It will be visibility. Visibility breeds imitation, and imitation dilutes authority. The cure is controlled distance. You appear just enough to remind them you exist, then retreat to remind them they can't replace you. You speak rarely but decisively. You delegate without guilt. You protect your peace like property. Every empire decays when its architect becomes addicted to applause. Don't let your masterpiece become a stage. Let it remain a fortress. Let your silence echo louder than your statements. If this sounds lonely, remember, solitude is the training ground of clarity. Every major shift in power begins with someone who spent enough time alone to hear their own thoughts uncorrupted. The crowd is too noisy to produce strategy. You cannot design a new hierarchy while standing inside the old one. Step outside. Observe. Document. Build quietly, then re-enter. Not as participant, but as architect. When you return, you will see something unsettling. Most people don't want freedom. They want familiarity. They crave the comfort of a master to complain about. You cannot save them by arguing. You save them by embodying what clarity looks like. Machiavelli never told men to be cruel. He told them to stop apologizing for being awake. Soon, people will call you lucky, arrogant, detached. Wear it. These are the adjectives mediocrity uses to describe discipline. When they tell you you've changed, thank them. It means your strategy is working. When they demand explanations, smile. It means you've become unpredictable. When they imitate you, let them. It means you've already won. Because wealth is not numbers. It's narrative. Whoever controls the story controls the scoreboard. You don't need to shout your version. You need to live it so consistently that disbelief becomes impossible. In time, the same people who mocked your silence will call it wisdom. The same who resented your boundaries will call them standards. The same who doubted your path will call it destiny. You have learned the mechanics of invisibility. Now learn its grace. Move through noise like smoke through light. Never argue where you can redirect. Never defend what time will prove. Never compete where you can redefine. The rich do not fight for attention. They decide what attention means. From this moment forward, remember 3 Machiavellian laws of modern wealth. Law 1. Control perception. Appear inevitable. Speak rarely. When you speak, speak in structures, principles that feel timeless. The masses love authority framed as timeless truth. Every brand, every empire, every religion survives on this. The cadence of certainty. Law 2. Control timing. Move slower than their panic and faster than their comfort. Timing is the bridge between foresight and dominance. Never be the first to move or the last to adapt. Let urgency reveal who lacks vision. Law 3. Control proximity. Access is power's camouflage. The more they see you, the less they respect you. Be scarce enough to remain a rumor. Be present enough to remain real. Proximity must feel earned. Practice these 3 laws daily and watch how reality bends. You will notice small synchronicities, the right person calling, the right door opening. But they're not fate. They're physics. You've aligned with the rhythm of inevitability. And then, one day, you'll realize that what you called getting rich was never about money. It was about attention, control, and peace. Money is just the echo of alignment. It accumulates around those who stop leaking energy through explanation, outrage, and guilt. From that point, your mission changes. Wealth becomes a weapon you wield with precision, not to dominate, but to design. You'll begin to see the system as clay, something you can sculpt to house your ideas, your people, your legacy. You'll invest not to multiply your lifestyle, but to multiply your reach. You'll build platforms that feed others while strengthening your fortress. You will look back at your old self, the tired, obedient worker chasing fairness, and you'll feel no hatred, only gratitude. That version of you built the stamina required to hold power without trembling. He built the hunger that kept you searching. He built the humility that keeps you from rotting in arrogance. Every phase was necessary. Every scar was tuition. And when you meet others still trapped in the illusion of effort, do not preach. Be the living example of calm success. Let them sense something unshakable in you, something that cannot be bought, imitated, or explained. Let curiosity do the recruitment. The world doesn't need another preacher of power. It needs another demonstration of it, You are no longer a participant in someone else's economy. You are the economy. Your ideas generate motion. Your time dictates temperature. Your attention builds markets. You will stop measuring success by what you own and start measuring it by how silently you influence the movement of others. That is the final transformation Machiavelli hinted at, but never lived to see. Wealth not as possession, but as gravitational field. The calm center of a spinning world. The strategist who shapes motion without stepping into chaos. You are already becoming that. You've dismantled obedience, weaponized awareness, mastered timing, and turned silence into strategy. What's left is to protect it, to guard your clarity like an empire guards its crown. Because clarity, once compromised, is the most expensive thing to rebuild. So end this video the way the powerful end every move, with quiet certainty, no promises, no noise, only the slow inhale of someone who has already decided the outcome. This channel isn't for followers, it's for strategists. You've already begun your transformation. Don't stop now, subscribe, and stay 2 moves ahead of those still playing by old rules. Comment below what part of you still obeys the illusion, and which part is ready to rule it. The next video will not teach you how to earn more. It will teach you how to become untouchable.